Hi there, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and today I'm going to do another deck tech on one of my personal decks. This one is called Artificer's Storm. Definitely not original by any stretch of the imagination, and as you can guess by the name, I use a lot of artifacts that allow me to storm into certain cards and multiply those cards in hopes of winning the game. But let's take a look at how I built this deck called Artificer's Storm. Enjoy. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at my deck, Artificer Storm. Here it is right here. Now, my deck is a little unconventional and it's kind of thick. It's actually a 65 card deck, and my mana base is actually only 17 lands. It seems like, well, it seems kind of imbalanced, but generally speaking, I don't have any problems with mana production whatsoever. Usually it seems like I have a tougher time getting exactly what I need from my deck. But there's so many cool things, and I have so many zero-cost items. It doesn't seem too much like an imbalance. So I like it like it is. Again, it's not super competitive, but it is casual fun, and there is kind of a lot of neat stuff in there, so I just keep it as is. So let's take a look at my mana base. First, I got one mountain, because I do have some storm cards that require red, so I've got this on the off chance I get to draw those cards. I've got 6 islands because it's predominantly blue. I have Halimar Depths, which not only can I tap for blue, but also allows me to stack my deck, or at least the top 3 cards of my deck, so that way I can see what's coming up and prepare myself and get the card that I want in my hand at the time that I need it, hopefully. Now, I'm always about draw power in my decks, so again, I got some Lonely Sandbars in here that have cycling. And for 1 blue, I can cycle this card to draw a card. And again, Remote Isle, again, I have cycling. It's two colorless cost to cycle, but that's okay. Again, more draw power if I need it. And City of Brass. Now, true, when I tap it for mana, it does 1 damage to me, although it does add 1 mana of any color to my mana pool. And I like City of Brass because if my other lands, if my basic lands get shut down, at least this is still available. And also, too, if new storm cards come out in different colors, well, I can just throw them in my deck, and City of Brass will help me be able to cast those without really having to change my deck up a whole lot. So basically, if there's some cool green storm cards I wanted in here, I just basically take that 1 mountain out of here, I'd put a forest, and then I'd remove the red storm cards and replace them with green or whatever color I need. Alright, so let's actually take a look at my storm deck itself. So starting out right in the beginning, I've got Shield Sphere. 0 cost, it's a wall 06 for power and defense, and if it's assigned as a blocker, then all it happens is it gets a -0, -1 counter on it. And what's nice is when I bounce this thing back to my hand, all those counters are going to go away. So if I put it back out again, it's a 0/6 ready to go. So I like Shield Sphere. It's a nice blocker, especially early, mid, or even late game, because you just get it out there for free to stop some really big stuff getting ready to hit you. And I've got 4 of those. I know in a lot of my decks, I normally only do 3 of certain key cards, but all my 0-cost cards are kind of key cards, so that's one of the reasons my deck is so thick, and why I'll have a lot of playsets of 4 in here instead of 3. Mem Knight's cool because he's actually a 1/1, and I've got a playset of them, no surprise there. Phyrexian Walker, way back from Visions, he's a 0/3, again a 0 cost, and he's just cool looking, I love him. A little beefy for just a freebie creature, so not bolt proof, but still looking pretty good, and 4 of those. Ornithopter, classic flyer 02, very nice. And there are ways to beef these guys up in my deck, so that way I can start swinging for stuff and maybe do some damage. But that's not the primarily way that I win. This is going way back. The Dark was actually one of my first Magic sets that I bought into, one of my expansions that I bought into. And I like it because you can sack it to prevent half the damage done to you by a single source rounded down. Not super great, but at the same time for free. Someone tries to hit you with a fireball for, oh, I don't know, 20. You only take 10 damage, or you got a big creature rolling over you for 10 damage. Now you only take 5. Buys you a little bit of time. Now, it's not a creature, but it is handy in a pinch. So shared discovery, 1 blue, and as an additional cost to cast it, all I have to do is tap 4 creatures and then I draw 3 cards. This is pretty easy to get to trigger early game, although I have run a couple problems where I've had 3 of my 0 cost creatures and Dark Sphere in play, and I can't play it because Dark Sphere is not a creature. But I have managed to use this a few times, and to be able to draw 3 cards for 1, and it's not unheard of for me to draw this in my hand and have 4 0 cost creatures right away, so this would let me get through my deck really quick. And it's only a sorcery, and I went ahead, I got 4 of them in there too. Although this is definitely one of those cards where I could easily trim down 1 or 2. Curfew. So each player chooses a creature he or she controls and returns it to their hand. It's back from Urza's Saga. Again, allowing me to get creatures back into my hand so I can lay them back down again for Storm. So in this case, I could lay down an Ornithopter, let's say. Then I could play this. They put a creature back. I put that Ornithopter back in my hand. Then I play Ornithopter again. Then I could cast a Storm card. So right there, that gives me quite a bit of options for Storm. So I got 3 of those Curfews. This is a new card relatively recently that I found. I mean, just a few weeks before I actually made this video. Ideas Unbound, 2 blue. It's from Savers of Kamigawa. Draw 3 cards and discard 3 cards at the end of turn. And if I don't have 3 cards in my hand at the end of turn, well, then I don't have 3 cards to discard. So this is kind of neat. It's a nice way to draw cards, although I did use this and I found out you can end up stacking up cards in your hand pretty quickly. So sometimes this has come back to bite you. But if you do it right, this card is super beneficial, and I went ahead and put 2 in here because of the uniqueness of this thing. Plus, if I'm just desperate, man, I'm going to draw whatever I can. And hopefully, if I'm not drawing any 0 cost creatures and I use this, hopefully I'm going to hit those creatures. Alright, Snap. This is always a fun card. This is from, let's see, Legacy right here. And for 2, you can return target creature to owner's hand, untap up to 2 lands. It's a free bounce spell. Why not? It's good for your opponent, good against your opponent, good for you throwing something back in your hand to either save it or getting ready to do Storm. See Beyond. Draw 2 cards, shuffle a card from your hand in your library. More draw power. And this is nice because if you have a useless card in your hand, then you can draw 2 cards and then get rid of a useless card, but it's not going to hit the graveyard. And I've got a couple of those. Here's my first Storm card, and this is Brain Freeze. This is a classic. These aren't terribly too cheap, and they can be hard to come by. It's from Scourge. So target player puts top 3 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. Storm. So then you get to copy it for each spell played before it this turn. That's the whole point of Storm. So you can see how quickly this can get out of hand. For instance, let's see. I play a Memnite. And then, let's say, I play Snap. So I bounce this creature back to my hand. Then I play it again. That's 1, 2, 3. That's 3 spells. Plus this, they have to mill 12 cards. Just from that. That's fast. A lot happened. And I only spent 2 mana to do all this. So it's definitely pretty cool and very nerve-wracking for your opponents. And of course, with Brain Freeze, I've got a play set because that's what you're going to want. And oh, look what's peeking out from behind Brain Freeze. Grape Shot. Again, super great card. 1 damage target creature or player. And when you pop it off with Storm, it's a thing of beauty. I actually had a chance in the game where there was a lot going on, a lot of spells happening. I played Brain Freeze. I still had 1 colorless and 1 red left over, and I was able to play Grape Shot right behind of a Brain Freeze, and it was ridiculous. And of course, it fed off all the extra copies that got cast with Brain Freeze, so it was crazy. So it did pretty good. And of course, there's a couple copies of Grape Shot. Chief of the Foundry, because, well, I put Chief of the Foundry in here because I might need to actually beef up my artifact creatures and defeat my opponents old school by swinging every turn. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+1. And he's a 3 cost, he's a 2/3, beefs up all those little creatures. Those Ornithopters are now swinging for 1. Them Knights swinging for 2. Really great, I love it. And of course, I'm definitely going to have 3 of these guys. I've had a playset in here, but I swapped it out for Master Thopterist. I figured, why not? And I can always change back if I need to. So, Master Thopterist, he only costs 3. He's a 1/4, so he's bolt proof. And whenever I cast an artifact spell, I get to create a 1/1 Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Plus, for a blue and a colorless, I can sack 2 artifacts to draw a card. Oh, that's perfect. So I could lay down 4 Zilcast artifacts, get 4 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens, sacrifice those, draw a card, and that's what I'm looking for. He is kind of a chump blocker, it's true, but he's there for draw power. Paradoxical Outcome. I love using this card. So it's a 4 cost, and I can throw any number of target non-land, non-token permanents I control to my hand, and I draw a card for each card returned to my hand this way. So if I've got 4 zero-cost artifacts out there, for 4 I can throw them back in my hand, throw them back out for 3, draw 4 cards. So already that's it's like 9. I believe that's storm count 9 right there. If I lay them out, cast this, that's 5, put 4 back in my hand, that's 9, and then say cast a Brain Freeze or Grape Shot on top of that, so that's 10 all of a sudden, just for 4. So you could really do some serious storming with Paradoxical Outcome, and I really like this card. This was neat. I just kind of stumbled upon it after I'd built this deck. After Kaladesh came out, I was like, wow, that's kind of neat. I don't know how I missed it before. And I really don't remember seeing a lot of people using this. But you never know. But this is a good card, though. I like this card, at least in this deck. Rewind. And this was originally in Urza's block, if I'm not mistaken. This is from M13. So counter target spell, untap up to 4 lands. It's not a blue deck unless you got a counter spell in it of some sort. So basically this is a free counter spell. Another storm card, Temporal Fissure. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. It's got storm. Of course, it's a 5 cost, so it's a little expensive. I like to have cheaper stuff in here, but honestly, if you can hold out and pull this off, you can bounce all sorts of stuff to your opponent's hand. Now, it just says return target permanent to its owner's hand. Now, of course, you could bounce stuff to your hand, but the reason why I put 3 Temporal Fissures in here is because hopefully what I've been doing is I've been whittling down my opponent, and this is going to be slightly later in the game when my opponent's powering up and I think he or she might have a chance to win, so I'm going to play it so that way I can throw important creatures, enchantments, artifacts back to their hand, but also to destroy their mana base with this, because it doesn't matter if it's a land or not. So I can if I can get their whole mana base back in their hand, boom, practically resets them. And the quicker I can get this out, the better off I'm going to be. I do suffer from not having quite enough mana excel in here to maybe make this as potent as it could be. But then again, I'm actually trying to really hit Storm or Grape Shot, or Brainstorm or Grape Shot. That's really more of my win condition than Temporal Fissure, although this super helps. And then Spreading Insurrection, another 5 cost. So I gain control of target creature I don't control to end of turn, untap it, and it gains haste till end of turn. So if I can storm it, I can take all of my opponent's creatures and swing with it. There's only 1 in here just because it's not primarily a red deck, but I figure having this in here would at least catch my opponents off guard. And this is a pretty recent addition as well. I think looking at it now, I think I maybe swap out a Temporal Fissure for something cheaper, keep 2 of them, and still keep this in here, but I'm not sure yet. Overall, though, I'm really happy with this deck. I like playing with it and tinkering with it. It's one of these decks that, for me, I've got so many decks. I've got some super simple decks. I've got decks that have all sorts of combos and combinations, but I like to slowly tinker with this deck and play it as is and really think about what I'm going to put in here, what I really enjoy putting in here, and my play style. And I try not to completely, when I add stuff, I try not to completely rebuild the deck. because I'm not trying to make a new deck. I'm trying to stick with a certain idea and a certain feel, and it's just fun. Again, with this deck, I got a few different win conditions. Spreading Insurrection is really just kind of not meant as a win condition, but I could see how it could be. Temporal Fissure would aid me. I could see how that could be a win condition, but it's not necessarily. Let's go back here. We're backing up a little bit. And now the Chief of the Foundry, that's a kind of a backup win condition where I can make all my creatures tough or tougher and just swing and hopefully whittle down my opponent if he doesn't have a lot of creatures, especially since I got flying creatures. But Grape Shot and Brainstorm, these are my two main win conditions in my deck. And if I'm going to win, this is how I'm going to win. 9 times out of 10, my opponent's going to die by mill, or I'm just going to flat out lose. And then everything else helps support it. Well, I hope you enjoyed looking at my Artificer Storm deck. Thanks for watching. That's it. All right, so I hope you enjoyed my look at Artificer Storm, and I hope it inspired you to maybe do some different stuff with your decks. Maybe consider using Storm in your decks. And remember, it doesn't have to be zero cast artifacts. It can be just any cheap spell. And don't forget, it counts for every spell that's played this turn. So if an opponent counters something that you have, that you've played, don't worry, because that goes on top of the Storm count. So you want to make sure to remember that. So if you've got an extra card that you can use to pop off that Storm, that's one more spell that adds to the Storm effect. So I hope you had a lot of fun watching. I certainly have fun making these videos, and I hope at the very least, even if this deck isn't something you want to build or play, at least maybe you'll get something out of it that maybe you didn't realize existed before. Even if you just saw one card that you can add to your deck to make it better, I've done my job. Well, thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, telling you to stay safe, play great games, and I'll see you real soon.